Oh, hi. Hello there. This is Let's Talk About Myths, baby. And I am your Euripides-obsessed host, Liv. Today I am returning with, of course, the second half of Euripides' Satyr play, the Cyclops. We aren't officially in the Euripides series of episodes, and yet I couldn't resist. When the world's first best playwright happens to be the author of the only surviving satyr play from classical Greece, I mean, there is no alternative. But before I dive back in, I want to let you know and or remind you that it is nearly time, I mean really by the time you hear this, probably time, to sign up for next year's group trips to Greece. So I am once again working with the travel agency Travelbug Livermore, where an amazing listener, Antonia, is working to get us another incredible tour through mythological Greece. And as I mentioned already, this next year we are going to have 2 different trips that are going to be happening. I'm really excited about this. This was an enormous priority for me to be able to have 2 kind of price options. So the first will be based in Athens only, touring the city and all of the sites there, the southern tip of Attica too, where we will visit the Temple of Poseidon at Sunion, and it's just an incredible temple that sits like right on the edge of a cliff over the sea. It's said to be where King Aegeus threw himself into the sea when he thought his shitty son Theseus was dead. But it's a beautiful temple, as well as Thorikos Theater, which is a particularly unique theater that's nearby that even I haven't been to yet. I'm very excited. And so that tour will be shorter and less expensive for those who can't make the longer tour work. And the longer tour will be the same as this past year. It was really great, so we're not changing it. We stayed in Athens, Nafplio, and on the island of Aegina, with trips to the Acropolis, its museum, Delphi, Eleusis, Epidaurus, Mycenae, the Temple of Aphaia on Aegina, and more. For more information, go to mythsbaby.com/group-trip. It's linked in the episode's description, and there you will find some more information as well as a link to the Google form. And once you fill out the form, you'll be contacted by Antonia, who can provide all of the most official information. It's going to run the same as last year, which it seems to me went pretty smoothly. So everything will be kind of determined by Antonia on that end, though I will be involved with picking the names. We will only be able to take 12 listeners on each trip, so, get yourselves in. The deadline to submit yourself is going to be listed on the site, or at least it will be. As of this writing, it's not yet, but probably by the time you hear it, it will be. If it's not, wait like 12 hours. You'll be fine. And then once we have that all sorted, we'll select randomly from those who applied. So it's a total of 24 people, double last year, actually more than that. So it's a pretty good opportunity, and I'm really excited. It went really well, and I was really scared, and it was only incredible. I can't wait to see what we do next. So one more thing. I've also still got the new ad-free subscription program that's going to be coming. I've hit a slight technical snag, so it remains to be seen exactly when that will come, but stay tuned. And that's enough of that. We've got half of a satyr play to get to. Where we last left this silly story, we heard the tale of Odysseus and Polyphemus the Cyclops, only this one is a little different. In this satyr play version of Homer's story, Euripides has taken this Homeric version of Odysseus and his men landing on the island of the Cyclops on their way home from Troy, and he's added satyrs. So many satyrs, and with satyrs comes dicks. There's a chorus of satyrs and Papa Satyr, Silenus. In this version of the story, these satyrs were en route to rescue the god Dionysus from the time he was kidnapped by pirates and ended up stranded and enslaved on the island of the Cyclops. Now remember, satyrs are important to Dionysus, and so is theater. This is a lot of fun stuff happening here. And then Odysseus shows up, and Silenus, the Papa Satyr, tries to barter some of the Cyclops' stores of food for a bit of really great wine. It doesn't go that well for him, though he does get drunk, because then Polyphemus arrived. And remember, Satyr plays aren't like the tragedies or really even comedies that we've looked at before. Satyr plays were staged at the end of the tragedy competitions. The tragedians would write 3 tragedies and 1 satyr play. They are shorter, they're weird, and this is the only one that survives. We don't entirely understand the genre, but they seem to be somewhat ridiculous stories jammed with satyrs, maybe to lighten the mood after a day full of child murder and sons marrying their mothers, maybe to thank Dionysus, like he would like something weird like this. In any case, this play, Euripides' Cyclops, is all we've got. And boy, is it weird. This is episode 272, Euripides, Odysseus, and the only surviving satyr play, the Cyclops Part 2. The chorus of dancing, enormously erect satyrs sings of the Cyclops. Odysseus has left the stage and entered the cave, forced by Polyphemus the Cyclops along with his men. The chorus of satyrs is left behind to sing of what's going on inside, or what might be in the future. Really, they're singing of being eaten by the Cyclops. Or rather, an attempt to avoid that fate. The chorus sings, quote, "No thanks, Cyclops. I'm not your guest, Cyclops. No thanks, Cyclops. Why you digest, Cyclops? A sacrificial feast, more fitting for a beast. Going home, may I suggest, would suit me best, Cyclops. On this we'll all agree, it's a pretty rotten host. It's the sort of boorish manners I really can't abide, notwithstanding the free offer of a salad on the side." It's only a quick song from the satyrs before Odysseus comes rushing out looking not at all comfortable with what he's just seen. Horrors, that's what he's seen. So bad he has trouble voicing it even to the satyrs. "Were your men eaten?" they ask. "2 of them," he tells them. But it was so much more than that. He tells them exactly what happened, how they entered the cave, how it was dark before it was lit by the fire stoked by Polyphemus. Odysseus tells the satyrs how the Cyclops prepared his kitchen for cooking before, quote, "As soon as everything was ready, this hellish cook grabbed 2 of my men. In a single movement he bled one of them into the brazen pot and, holding the other by the ankle, cracked open his skull on a jagged bit of wall so his brain spilled out. With his knife he chopped off the flesh to bake on the fire and put the limbs into the pot to boil. It was terrible." Have I told you lately how much I love Euripides? Like, is it weird that my love for him is only amplified by reading this bizarre and gory description of men being cooked and eaten by a giant Cyclops? No. But it gets better. Odysseus tells the satyrs what happened next. His men were terrified. Those that weren't being eaten, of course, all huddled in a corner. They all watched as the Cyclops, full on the flesh of their companions, fell back onto his bed with a loud belch. That's when Odysseus had his brilliant idea. Get Polyphemus drunk. He tells the chorus that his plan was to get him drunk on the fancy wine that he'd already shared with Silenus. So Odysseus offered the Cyclops some wine, and it's good wine. Before long, quote, "He started to sing. I just kept filling him up, warming his cockles and filling him up. There's the Cyclops singing away on one side, my sailors howling away on the other, all round the cave." Then Odysseus says, quote, "So I popped out quietly to save myself, and you too, if you want." No mention of his men now. No, this is Odysseus. If he's famous for anything, it's sitting back while hundreds of his men die terrible deaths. And yet he remains. Yes, he's still my main man, it's fine. "So do you want to come with me?" he asks the chorus of satyrs. "Do you want to escape the Cyclops so you can find your god, Dionysus?" Quote, "Your father inside says yes, but he can hardly stand up from the drink and is glued to his cup, wings flapping like a bird trapped in lime. But you're young. Let's get away together and you can go and find your Dionysus. Dear old Dionysus, a far cry from this ghastly Cyclops. Papa Silenus, he's as drunk as the Cyclops. That's what we're learning here. The satyrs, though, they are very interested in this idea. It's about time they escaped the gory mess that was life with the Cyclops. Plus, the chorus of enormously erect satyrs reply, quote, "My poor old prick's been in retreat recently. He could do with a nibble." Yeah. Remember, as much as the ancient Greeks were brilliant and artistic and creative in ways that we will never fully comprehend and we should appreciate forever, they also loved dicks and dick jokes. Fart jokes, too. Odysseus tells the chorus of dick-loving satyrs that he's got a plan. What? Are you gonna leap on him when he's alone or shove him off a cliffside? The chorus asks. Ha ha ha. I want to believe, Odysseus said. He's far cleverer than that. No, he tells them. He prefers a subtle approach, an intellectual approach. I'm certain he said this with the haughtiest tone that the actor had in his repertoire. Odysseus tells the dick-swinging satyrs that he's already proven that Polyphemus the Cyclops loves good wine. So now it's time for even more. He's going to get the Cyclops even more drunk. Fill him up with all the wine that he can jam in. Odysseus will convince him that he doesn't want to have a party with the other Cyclops, even if he's made suggestions that he'd like that so far. No, he needs to keep all the wine for himself. There's no sharing the vintage Odysseus has plied him with. Then, quote, I'll wait until he's overcome and in a Dionysiac stupor. He tells him that inside the cave he saw an olive branch, that the next step of his plan is to sharpen it, set it in the fire, and then, quote, as soon as it's alight, I'll pick it out and plunge it into his eye socket. That will sizzle his vision. And just as a shipwright drives his drill with a double strap, I'll twirl my twig in his socket and recycle the Cyclops. He'll twirl his twig in the Cyclops' socket. The chorus of satyrs are thrilled with this idea. It's wild. They love it. Can they help at all? They ask Odysseus. Quote, is there any way I could give a hand, especially with the red-hot gouging? I would like to give a hand with the gouging. Euripides is hilarious. This translation is hilarious. Of course you can help, Odysseus tells them. The red-hot poker is huge. It can use more hands. All right, Odysseus says to the chorus of dick swingers. I imagine he's rubbing his hands together conspiratorially. I mean, imagine that as what you will. Now that we've got a plan in place, let's get moving. Follow me and my orders. But, quote, I have no intention of deserting my men by beating a retreat. Though, of course, I could, me being outside the cave. But it wouldn't be fair for me to desert my companions. We came here together, after all, just to save my own skin. Yeah, you thought Odysseus was going to be selfless, like just for a minute, and you were wrong. I mean, fine, he's saving his men, but I am obsessed with Euripides writing his character true enough to acknowledge that he doesn't actually want to save his men. Like, he just kind of feels like he has to. He's definitely imagined just leaving them there to die, because, like, he could. He's Odysseus, and he's outside the cave while they're inside! But now, he wants to look like the hero, so he's going to save his remaining men from the Cyclops' grasp. That doesn't make the chorus of phallocentric satyrs any more comfortable with the situation, though. Ooh. Their reply is to sing, quote, after me first, not you. Don't push. What's the rush? Form a cue. To grasp the flaming flagpole and shove it in his eye hole and twiddle till his brains are seeping through. Then they change their tune. The Cyclops walks out from the cave, and oh, he's as drunk as a skunk and singing his own tune. The satyrs then sing of the Cyclops' singing, of his drunkenness, and of getting laid. Quote, "We'll speed his arousal, we'll teach him carousal. By the time that we're finished, he'll end up blind drunk. Happy the man laid out with grapes in a bunch. Happy the man engaged with a friend after lunch, getting happily laid. Happy the man with a delicate girl in his bedding. Happy the man anticipating the wedding with the bridesmaid." Then Polyphemus the Cyclops joins them. He sings of being just as drunk as the satyrs imagined he was, that his stomach is full of wine, that he's playing it like a drum. He's singing of having the other Cyclops friends join him. Quote, "A paean cyclopean." He asks for more wine. The chorus of penis flingers sings of a wedding. The wedding, I gather, between the Cyclops Polyphemus and the sharpened branch that Odysseus intends to jam into his face. Quote, "The bridal torch is waiting, and she's ready for the mating. Inside the juicy hall, preparations almost done. For the groom it's just begun. His crown still needs its multicolored shawl." With the Cyclops outside of the cave and drunk off his ass, Odysseus is there to keep the plan moving. He gives Polyphemus exactly what he asked for: more wine. And, well, Polyphemus is drunk enough to imagine that the god Dionysus is living inside the very wineskin that Odysseus is offering to him. Quote, "Doesn't he mind living in a skin, being a god?" And a moment later, when Odysseus assures the one-eyed giant that the god of wine is perfectly content living in a wineskin, quote, "It's not right for gods to live in skins." To which Odysseus says simply, quote, "Who cares as long as he makes you happy?" Polyphemus is persuaded to drink more wine and convinced once more that he shouldn't invite his Cyclops brothers over for a tipple, that any reasonable person would keep all of that delicious wine for themselves. He really needs convincing, though. "Isn't it more fun to be drunk with friends?" he asks. "Oh no, it's best when you're at home," Odysseus says. "Parties always end in fights anyway." "Oh, I'm too drunk for anyone to dare win in a fight," Polyphemus predicts. In the end, though, he's persuaded by Papa Silenus to spend his drunken adventure at home, laying in the sun outside his cave on a soft bed of flowers. It's pretty appealing, I have to say. Less so, though, when you remember what Odysseus has up his sleeve, or rather what he's about to have up Polyphemus's eye. And so, when the topic returns to the wine and Polyphemus needs more, he finally asks this stranger for his name. To which, of course, Odysseus replies, quote, "My name is Nobody, and what have you to offer me in return?" "I'll eat you last," Polyphemus tells him. Cyclops is quickly distracted because of wine. He returns to Silenus, who's taken a sip, taking back the wine for another of his own. The pair bicker about the wine. They are both drunk. Silenus claims he needs to check the mixture. "Just another sip, to be sure." Polyphemus calls him a villainous cupbearer. Back and forth, the wine is passed between them. Odysseus takes up the skin next. When he's asked to pour it instead, it's really quite a funny scene, but nearly impossible to fully convey without dialogue. The point is, well, Polyphemus gets very, very, very drunk. So drunk that he starts imagining he's up on Mount Olympus with the Olympians themselves. Quote, "Heaven seems to be getting muddled up with the earth. There's the throne of Zeus and the glory of the gods. It's divine. Shall I make love to the lot of you? Don't tempt me, graces. No, I'll make do with my Ganymede here. I'll have a better jiggle with him than with all of the graces put together. I'd rather have little boys than women any day. Once you finish gagging, just remember that that's a reference to the deeply problematic and troubling by modern standards practice of pederasty. There's a relationship between Zeus and Ganymede. It's like that. It's ick. But we must forego the ick and remember that it was a deeply normal practice back then. Because Silenus now adds that he understands that Polyphemus is casting himself as Zeus in this scenario, but is Polyphemus meant to be Ganymede? He asks. And so with one more joke that's just a mega ick, because basically the play here is that Silenus is quote-unquote seducing Polyphemus into the cave, so he gets him passed out drunk. The Papa Satyr and Cyclops return to the cave. And still outside, Odysseus reminds the chorus what they're there to do, and after the chorus amps him up a little, sings of taking out the Cyclops' eye. But he sings it as if he's really in a tragedy this time, as if he's really the heroic character out to right a wrong. Things like, quote, "Destroy not Odysseus and his crew at the hands of one who cares not for men and less for gods." Which is then immediately contrasted by the chorus, singing, quote, "We're singing songs of savage tongues, ready to nobble a guest gobbler." They go on, singing of taking out his eye with the fiery stake. They sing in prayer of the wine working its Dionysian magic, that the Cyclops gets even drunker. And finally they sing to everyone's favorite god of drunken madness, quote, "How I miss you, Dionysus, ivy-kissing Dionysus. Oh, let me bid farewell to this Cyclopean hell. Shall I ever see you more, my Dionysus, and dwell with you in bliss, my Dionysus?" Odysseus sends the chorus into the cave. He reminds them what they're there to do and what's happening next. It's eye gouging time. The satyrs aren't quite so confident anymore. Don't you think you should give us a little more information on the eye gouging? They ask. Who should hold the stick and where? Quote, "Because some of us are a bit of a long way from the door, actually, for pushing the flame into the eye, and I've just turned my ankle." Needless to say, they're not feeling quite as heroic as Odysseus. And who blames them? And remember, you can never forget, don't ever forget, they're wearing costumes equipped with enormous erect phalloi. Odysseus calls them out. "Oh, sure, your ankle just happened to turn now?" To which they add, quote, "Oh, dust in my eye. Ash, probably." "You wimps," Odysseus tells them. To which they say, quote, "Just because I don't want to damage my back, I've got a bad back, and have my teeth knocked out of my head, suddenly I'm a coward. I do know a wonderful magic song, which will make the brand jump up all by itself and sear the skull of this one-eyed son of the soil." This play is really so fun. "Fine," Odysseus tells them. "If you all aren't brave enough to go inside and help me, I'll have to rely on the men of mine that are still in there." Which, way to remember they're there, Odysseus. Baby steps. He adds to the chorus, "You can't do nothing. Sing them a song or something." The satyrs are only relieved. "Perfect! That's what we'll do. You handle the eye gouging, we'll handle the music. Sounds even." And so when Odysseus goes back inside the cave, the chorus of rock-hard satyrs stays outside, and they sing of, the eye gouging. Quote, "Twist it, be firm with it, give him a perm with it, wind it and twine it, try to refine it. Now anti-clockwise and just watch him squirm with it." They keep going. More hope for violence, more calls for gore. At one point we hear the Cyclops crying out from inside, screaming about his eye, and Odysseus cheering the chorus on and asking for more singing. And now blinded, the Cyclops does as the Odyssey wishes of him and determines that, well, he can still block his attacker, nobody, from leaving his cave. This time, though, there's a chorus of satyrs. Polyphemus is sitting at the mouth of the cave, and the chorus checks in on him. Things are, of course, not great. What's wrong with you? The dick-swinging satyrs ask. Polyphemus says, quote, I'm dead. Yeah, you don't look great, they tell him. Did you hurt yourself? Nobody did it, he tells them. Oh, that's good then. The Cyclops says, quote, nobody has blinded me. Well, then you can't be blind, they tell him. This goes on for another couple of lines. Finally, Polyphemus asks, where is nobody? They tell him, quote, nowhere, Cyclops. Polyphemus keeps searching around, asking the chorus where nobody and his men are, bumbling around with their intentionally poor instructions. Back and forth, he searches. Eventually, of course, Odysseus and his men use the opportunity to free themselves from the Cyclops' grasp, just as Homer intended. Odysseus reveals his true name. Polyphemus makes the threat of his father Poseidon, promising Odysseus that he has many more years at sea ahead of him. And the chorus of penis-swinging satyrs that have all been so magnificently added to this classic Homeric story join Odysseus and his men on their ship, speaking the final lines of the play. Quote, we'll join you on board, Odysseus, and for the rest of our lives we'll serve nobody but Dionysus. Nerds. Well, that was the only surviving satyr play from the classical world. I am fascinated by the concept of these. Like, that was just bizarre in a truly joyful way. I mean, so many dicks. That's not necessarily the joyful part, but it is certainly bizarre. I just think it's so fun to remember that for all we think of Greek tragedy as this intelligent form of high art, which it was also accompanied by dick-swinging satyrs who make off-color jokes. I hope to talk more about satyr plays in the future. Today's episode is slightly hindered by the absolutely endless hours I've been putting in for the new merch and updated everything. These are good hours. I'm happy about it, but also they're long. So here we are. On Friday, I have an incredibly amazing conversation for you. It's fun. It's fun. And next week, the official start of our Euripides series. Let's Talk About Myths, Baby is written and produced by me, Liv Albert. Michaela Smith is the Hermes to my Olympians, the assistant producer. Select music in this episode was by Luke Chaos. The podcast is part of the iHeart Podcast Network. Listen on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Stay tuned for more on a subscription program to support the podcast and get ad-free options and so much more. The website's looking cool and new too if you want to check it out, mythsbaby.com. I am Liv and I love this shit.